20 seconds. Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Hello again, welcome to this week's Whistle Test. My name's Bob Harris, and really the centrepiece of tonight's programme is the film we made in San Francisco while we were there, of Jesse Colin Young. But there's also a superb cartoon film made by Cat Stevens, and 2 numbers from a fine session from Robin Trower. Both come from his new LP, Bridge of Sighs, and this is Little Bit of Sympathy.
And drink it on up, 'cause tomorrow never comes. We'll run answer to your God, when we'll be up and gone. She was blessed and the land all gone. Will still be a man to me. When my time is past, is it too much to ask for a little bit of sympathy? A little bit of sympathy. Just a little bit of sympathy. A little bit of sympathy. A little bit of sympathy.
Robin Trower with Jimmy Dewar on bass and vocals, and Reg Isidore on drums, and a little bit of sympathy from the LP Bridge of Sighs. Right, well, here's a delightful cartoon film now, made a couple of years ago by Cat Stevens. The illustrations are his own, and this is the first time it's been shown on television. So let's just sit back and enjoy Moonshadow.
Yes, I'm being followed by a moon. And if I ever lose my hands, lose my plow, lose my land, oh, if I ever lose my hands, oh, I won't have to work no more. And if I ever lose my eyes, if my colors all run dry, it's if I ever lose my eyes, oh, I won't have to cry no more. Yes, I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow, leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. And if I ever lose my legs, I won't moan and I won't beg. Oh, if I ever lose my legs, oh, I won't have to walk no more. And if I ever lose my mouth, all my teeth, north and south, it's if I ever lose my mouth, oh, I won't have to talk. Did it take long to find me? I asked the faithful light. Oh, did it take long to find me? And are you gonna stay the night? I'm being followed by a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow, leaping and hopping on a moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow.
The moon finally descended upon a prickle red tree.
That's fantastic. Cat Stevens, and that was Moon Shadow. Well, along with Van Morrison, Stevie Wonder, the Beach Boys and others, it's the music of Jesse Colin Young that's given me the greatest enjoyment over the past few years. And while we're on the West Coast in February researching the Beach Boys story for Radio 1, we visited Jesse at his house just a short way from San Francisco. To quote a Youngbloods album title, High on a Ridgetop. Okay, Jesse, if we can go back to start with to the time when you first started performing. When was it that you started?
About, maybe 11, 12 years ago in New York City. I started out playing the guitar and singing and by myself. Made a couple of records like that, too. One of them, as a matter of fact, was just re-released over here after being out of print for about 6 years. I played a folk circuit in New England and New York and places like that, and when I was in Boston, I used to stay with a guy named Jerry Corbett, who became a very close friend and whom I started the Youngbloods with. He'd been picking by himself for 3 or 4 years, and so had I, and we were both kind of tired of it. And it all started by him coming and sitting in on my gigs and me digging it. And then in the afternoons, we'd get into singing harmonies. And both of us had been brought up on the Everly Brothers, and so that's what happened. We were kind of tempted. I guess both of us were tired of playing by ourselves, although it's a very strict discipline and you learn a lot from it because there's no one else to lean on. After a while, you're tired of the constant pressure and also of the kind of that one sound. And so we went out and bought our first amp, and we both bought pickups and played through one amp and got a bass player and a drummer, and pretty soon Jesse Colin Young and the Lonely Nights turned into the Youngbloods, and we made about 2 records back there, and then we discovered San Francisco. We were living in New York at the time, and all there was in New York was discotheques, and they wanted Rolling Stones songs, and they didn't appreciate original, yeah, right. Original music. I mean, they wanted dance music, you know. And we came out to San Francisco, and we played at a place called the Avalon Ballroom, and which is a beautiful old ballroom, hung with these great red velvet drapes, and all these freaks with the hair like I'd never seen before. I mean, I had a little short hair in New York that was long hair, and when I would go to Ohio to play, we'd always get a lot of flack in the airports. And I came to San Francisco and never seen a whole big room full of people with great big hair. And it was a beautiful experience to play to a whole room full of freaks, and who seemed to enjoy the music more the more original it was. And so after being out here for about 6 weeks, we just made up our mind we were coming back. So we went home and finished up our second album in a month, packed our things, and left, and came right from New York City right to here.
So when did you actually move to this house, Jesse?
First we lived in a little town called Inverness, and then I had a little tiny house built by a ship's captain that was out on stilts over the water, and that was for about 3 years. And in the process, we started building this house, and I watched it go up. We used to come and visit. And once it was just a clearing, and then next it had a floor and no walls, and we'd come and we'd walk around and imagine what it was going to be like.
Because although not many of the albums on the label were ever released in Britain, what was it, 14 albums were recorded for the Raccoon label?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. How did you come to form the label, Jesse?
Well, we'd spent 3 years on RCA Victor, and we didn't like it very much. We started out with very little control over what was happening, and which perhaps is not so bad for musicians who don't know what's happening. But once you learn about recording and your records, then you kind of want to do it your own way. And so we'd had a belly full of the record company doing it and us hating it. So we were looking around for a label that would let us really do our own thing, and Warner Brothers was the one, and that's why we signed. And we kind of like hedged over from complete artistic control into, well, if we're going to make the records of other people, why don't we have a label? And then we went through a big change trying to think of a name, and came up with Raccoon, and that's how it all started.
Were you actively going out and looking for people for the label?
Not really. Michael Hurley was one of the people we recorded on Raccoon. He was an old friend. He made his first album the same time I made mine, 10 years before that, and had never made another one. And I'd always loved his music, and I'd just been waiting for a chance for years to record him. And when we formed Raccoon, I made up my mind I was going to do it, so I took my little Sony into his living room. It was my first record as an engineer-producer. I knew absolutely nothing, and we sat around his living room for a couple of weeks, and I taped him and ran outside and shut the door and listened in headphones and tried to balance, because it was a 2-track, and we had to get it all, the first time out.
Right. So what happened then to Raccoon and to the Youngbloods, Jesse?
Well, I think what happened was that, first of all, the Youngbloods as a creative wellspring, so to speak, kind of dried up. Jerry left years right after Elephant Mountain, which was about halfway. And he was my good buddy. After that, we had some good couple of years performing, but the records started to deteriorate, mainly because we refused to go back in the studio. It was so painful for us that we figured there had to be a better way, so we tried some live recording, and that didn't turn out too well. Then I started to conceive this idea of building a studio, which was just, like a dream. We spent so much time on the road that I figured the thing to do would be, since I spent half my life in the studio, maybe would be to have it next to my house. So I'd get to spend some time with my children, and I know when we came back off the road, I don't want it to happen again. Our horn player's little daughter brought his son in and said, Mike, this is your daddy. And we'd been gone for so long that she felt it was an introduction was necessary. And I really didn't, I don't want that to happen.
So now, I'm going to do a couple of songs for us anyway in the studio. Jesse, can you tell us a little bit about them?
Morning Sun is about what it feels like to wake up here, surrounded by the people who you love and who love you, and about a feeling that I've gotten since I lived here in the country. I was born and raised in New York, and I never felt particularly at one with even myself. But I get a feeling of oneness up here sometimes when I'm really quiet and real. Everything is real peaceful. I feel very close to my family. I feel close to the trees and to the birds. And living up here has really got me higher than I've ever been. And that's kind of what Morning Sun's about. We're going to do a song for Julie, too, which is a song for my daughter. It's kind of a family song. My wife wrote the lyrics to it, Susie. It was just an instrumental. And actually what happened was Julie was kind of upset. I put out an album with a picture of myself and my son on it. And she came first, you know. So she was not, she didn't dig it at all. And so we played we were playing the instrumental that became Song for Julie one day in the studio, and Susie was down there, and I was teaching her to do a little engineering. And she was lying around on the floor, and we played the take through, and she handed me some lyrics afterwards, and that's how it became Song for Julie, and it also kind of evened up the score, see?
Right.
I made everything just fine again.
Right. Shall we get onto the studio?
Let's.
Right.
Oh, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sun has come, shine the darkness from my eyes. And I wake up in the treetops, darling. Oh, and I got you by my side. There's a sweet smile on your face. Your hair is all undone. And I feel that we are one, yeah. The morning sun is come. When the morning sun is come, shine the darkness from my eyes. And I walk out on the rich top people. Well, I sit there for a while, oh yeah. Then I watch a red tail fall, flying circles around the sun. Well, I feel that we are one, yeah. The morning sun is gone. When the morning sun is come, yeah, shine the darkness from my eyes. Well, I listen in the stillness, people, and I hear my little baby cry, yeah. Well, I look into the face of a life that's just begun. Lord, I feel that we are one, yeah. The morning sun is come. Hey. This is a song for Julia. Some things I'm trying to say. A song of dreams for Julia. Perhaps you'll understand when they walking hand in hand over stream and hill through the windswept sand. I can see her still. Flowers in her hair, flowers everywhere. So you know I love you, and I am dreaming of you, Julia. Oh, my Julia, my Julia, my Julia. You look petrified.
That's the man, Jesse Colin Young, and 2 songs from the album Song for Julie. And since we recorded that session, he's completed a new album called Lightshine, and that should be released in this country sometime over the next couple of months. So there we are. And that more or less winds things up. Music from Tassevale and Presidente on next week's Whistle Test. And as it's the 10th anniversary of BBC Two, we'll be showing some clips from Colour Me Pop and Disco 2, the predecessors of Whistle Test. So try and watch if you can, because there really is some fine music to come. And we'll be back next Wednesday at 10:45. But meanwhile, here's Robin Trower to close tonight's programme with the title song from the album Bridge of Sighs. See you next Wednesday. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
The gods look down.